Hey guys, welcome back to another episode of RepPath. Today we have a really interesting topic. This topic is basically for anyone either that's a very experienced rep or individuals that are trying to break into the industry, still figuring out where they're going, whether it's medical device, capital equipment, diagnostics, pharma, no matter what industry or area you're trying to get into, capital equipment is a very, very important and exciting a path to go down. So I know a lot of you that have experience, you wondered what it's like to get into the capital side. Some of you with no experience, you still have a lot of questions. So today we're going to really, look into navigating that long sales cycle of capital equipment and being able to buy and sell in the hospital systems. So again, guys, before we get into this, please, anyone that's listening in, make sure that you're sending your questions in now. Anytime throughout the podcast is okay. We're going to take a break about halfway through to field some Q&A. So make sure you're submitting from this moment on. And also always make sure that you're subscribing to my YouTube channel, Unfiltered Medical Sales Coaching, so you can get a copy of this. Because we're going live right now on YouTube, LinkedIn, Facebook, and Instagram. And then we're also on every podcast platform. So just so you ensure that you get this content, if you miss it, or if you want to go back and see some of my old content, make sure you subscribe to Unfiltered Medical Sales Coaching. Okay, so for today, guys, capital sales and the long sales cycle. One of these things, this is something that I think I get hit up maybe 50 times a week. Joe, I want to get into capital equipment. I'm really eager to get into capital equipment sales. I'm ready to progress in my career. I've done a great job selling in the OR. I've done a great job in office-based selling. I'm really ready for this next step, which a lot of individuals look at as a promotable position, which it usually is. You rarely see young 22, 23-year-olds out there selling in the hospital space, selling capital equipment that's, $500,000 plus. It's something that you need to get a lot of experience selling to physicians and then being able to navigate through the hospital systems, which creates, many more challenges. So to get into capital equipment, you typically need experience either in pharma or preferably in device, where you're learning the hospital space. I mean, this is much different than calling on offices. When you pull up to an office, you see Dr. Jones's name on the sign outside. He might have a partner or two, or they might be within a group, but odds are you're going to walk in a building. You're going to be able to, in time, whether it's a tough office to get into or not, you're going to be able to see Dr. Jones much easier than when you walk into a hospital. So you have to understand what you're getting yourself into. So I just want to give a little background on what this really means to get into the capital equipment space and selling in, a quote unquote long sales cycle. So what does that mean? What is a long sales cycle? Now, for me, anything longer than a year is a long sales cycle. And many of these capital equipment products take 1, 2, 3, it could take even 4 or 5 years before you get a sale. And some of you might be sitting there going, that's crazy. There's no way. I had some deals that I was working on for 3 years that still didn't close, but they were still open deals that were on the table that were going through the sales cycle and actually progressing through that pipeline to through the funnel to becoming a possible deal. So you have to realize, guys, this is long. When we say long, it's long. So you're not going to walk in there your first day, walk into the hospital and walk out with a purchase order because you're the most amazing rep in the world. The best reps in the world during the capital equipment cycle, they understand the space. They know what it takes to get this product purchased. So they're willing to, put the work in, not get that constant gratification that we get in office-based selling. And that was the biggest adjustment for me. I walked into some offices, I had lunches. When I started in pharma, I actually left with doctors during a lunch. They were so impressed. When I was talking to staff after the lunch, I would still hang around for another half hour, 45 minutes answering questions. Doctor came back in. Hey, Joe, I just wrote a script for NuvaRing. Or, hey, Joe, I just wrote a script for Avinza. And I still was in my initial lunch because they were impressed, and I was able to sell features and benefits and actually sell to their key drivers where they were willing to try my product out on their next patient. It's never going to happen in capital sales, guys. Never. If you walk in the hospital and actually get access within the hospital on your first visit, that's a win. So get in the mindset. It takes a long time. You have to be patient. So don't think you're going to get a deal on your first day or even the first few months. So knowing what you're getting yourself into is key. Whenever you're in these interviews and you're going for a capital role, you have to know what you're getting yourself into. You have to be speaking with the hiring manager and understand what their realistic timeline is, what the company's realistic timeline is when you're going to take this role. For some of you just getting into it, feel free to reach out to me and schedule a call because we could break down your individual challenge that you're having or the potential opportunity, and I can help guide you on is that realistic or not. Because some of these companies, guys, they have shareholders, they have individuals that are not in the hospitals all day, they have board of directors, they have people that want results, they have to get results, and sometimes they're not in line to what's going on with what reality is. And they might need you to sell XYZ product within the first 3 to 6 months. And you're just not going to do that with a lot of these products. So you have to understand that it's going to take longer than that. You don't want to jump into a job just because you got this new medical, capital equipment role and you're all gung-ho because you finally got that capital role that you've always wanted. And now you could sell $1 million product. It's going to be so cool and so exciting. And if you don't have the realistic timeline aligned with your company, you're going to be very disappointed because they're going to be on you. And we're going to talk about that later in the call. So you have to have the expectations set from day one before you take one of these roles is the point that I'm getting at during the interview process. So set those expectations at the beginning with your company. Be in line with, obviously they're always going to push and you always have to get things done. That's just sales. But you have to be realistic too, and your company has to be realistic. So when you first get into this role, speaking of expectations, that you have to be able to set the expectations with your customer too. Okay. So when you get into the hospital space, this, like I said, completely different from selling office-based sales. There's many players involved for you to actually get a sale accomplished. So it's not going to just be the doctor like it is typically. Typically, you walk into an office, you got to get by the gatekeeper at the receptionist, maybe an office manager, or potentially a nurse practitioner that is, I want to say blocking you from seeing the doctor. But eventually you're going to get to that doctor, be able to sell your product, find out his or her needs, and then sell your product and provide value where you actually get a doctor to either prescribe your product or use you on that next case. This is out of many of the doctors' hands where even they don't have the control to just get a product in because they want it. Doctors want a lot of products. If you ask many of these doctors, they would say yes to anything that they find cool or interesting or can help their patients. Why wouldn't they want it at their disposal? They could just reach and have 50 different options that can help their patients. Of course they want that, but they are not able to make these decisions because while they're a part of the decision, it goes many other levels when you're in the capital space to get some of this done. Okay, so some of the players that you might be working with are not just the physicians, because you need, just to walk through some of the key people that you need. Number one person you need when you start in this process is a champion. And a champion is a physician that wants your product. This is the individual that's really going to drive this product getting passed through the many layers within the hospital. So you need a champion. You also need, individuals, other physicians that are supportive of your champion. Because a lot of times a doctor, just because they want it, they need more physicians that find value in this product to get it pushed along. It's rare that one doctor is just going to get this only because he or she wants it. They need multiple physicians. So you start with your champion, and then you need buy-in from other physicians to help get this pushed along. You also need individuals from the VAC committee. If you're in device, the VAC is your value analysis committee. So these are individuals that you might not know are on the committee. They don't wear like a V emblem on their chest. So you're like, oh, that's a VAC member. No, a lot of times, guys, this takes time to figure out who's on these committees. But it's very important, because the more that you know who's in the committee, then it can help guide you to, selling the value to them, to providing information. So you need those VAC committee members. The more you know about them, the better, because the doctor is going to, just so you guys understand, the doctors go to the VAC committee to present why they should be buying your product. You are not allowed in the VAC committee. This used to happen years ago, many years ago, where device and pharma reps can go in there with the physician, go to a VAC committee meeting, and then sell their product. It doesn't happen anymore, guys. Now you have to get your physicians so knowledgeable about your product that they can go in there and sell it for you. It is a very different game, guys. This is why capital equipment is much more challenging, because some of your physicians might be good enough to sell your product when you're talking every day. But if you actually have them get up there in front of a group of doctors and you recorded them, you would sit back and go, what the heck is he talking about? That's not what that's not correct. Or he's forgetting to talk about so many other aspects of the product. They have a million things going on in their lives, guys. While they do care about getting products, approved by the hospital so they can use them, they're never going to be as good as you are at selling the product that puts food on the table for you. Their practice, their patients, that's what supports them. That's what they care about, are their patients. Your product is just another tool that they can use. So you have to make sure that you're constantly educating them before they go into these VAC committee meetings. And a big tip that I learned the hard way, it's all about timing. So once you get your champion and then they're going into a VAC meeting, you have to know when the meetings are scheduled. It's very important, guys. I can't stress this enough. You could go in there today with Dr. Jones and sit with him for an hour. He can actually sell the product back to you. He's ready to go. He's got the studies involved. He has all the white papers. He has everything. He knows everything about your product. Now the VAC committee you never looked up, the VAC committee is not for a month from now, the VAC committee meeting. Now you think a month from now, Dr. Jones remembers 80% of the things you guys reviewed today? No. So knowing when the meetings are scheduled and then timing the time you're going to meet with that physician to go over the presentation, what they're going to say, what studies are you going to have available for them? What is going to be the support material that he's going to use during this presentation? That's important. I can't stress it enough, guys. You have to know when they're scheduled, and then you have to be in there in a timely manner so it's fresh in their minds to get in front of these physicians. I've been there. I've had doctors that forgot about the meeting because I didn't know when it was, and then I was there a week later, or I forgot to remind them ahead of time. If you don't remember, they're not going to remember. I promise you that, guys. So you have to stay on top of them. So I would make sure that you get those meetings scheduled. You learn when the meetings are, and then you are scheduling an in-service a day or a couple of days before that meeting. Absolutely mandatory, because those in-services are so crucial for you to be fresh in mind with that physician to present at the meeting. So you have your champions, you have your support, clinical support, and you have your VAC committee. Now there's also different admin that you need involved. So for instance, if you're selling in cardiology, which I used to sell in. So I used to sell, it was over a $2.2 million robotic cardiac ablation product that we would have to sell to a hospital. It also was another $2 million build out of an existing cath lab room to get this, product installed. So it was almost a $5 billion investment for the hospital. Obviously, you're not selling these every day. So you have to really make sure that you have everything aligned so that you're able to get the hospital to purchase this product. So to get that, when the administration gets involved, which starts with, say, the VP of the department. So they're the ones that are going to have to sign off on this, because a lot of times when you're selling $1 million products, you need because they're going to take budget dollars from other departments. Every department doesn't have $5 million sitting around waiting for reps to come in to buy their products. They typically, like for instance, some of the hospitals in the city had anything above 150,000 needed to get approval from outside of the department. So cardiology could say, yes, we want this. Yeah, but it costs $1 million. You need support from multiple departments. So you're going to have to get that. So getting the support from the VP of cardiology is just the next step. And the bigger your product is, the more expensive your product is, trust me, this can go all the way up, like in our instance, which will get onto the CEO's desk. It's definitely going to be in the CFO's desk because he's going to have to approve this in financing. And then it's going to get to the CEO to finally give the final approval. So by doing this, you have to really show value. And when you're getting the CFO and CEO involved, you have to wear a different hat. And when you're getting materials management, because they're going to be a part of this in procurement, when they're actually purchasing the product, you need all these departments, all these individuals involved in the purchase. And you have to change your hat. And when I say change your hat, it means change the direction of the conversation when you're speaking with different individuals. So if I'm speaking with a physician, I'm going to talk about the clinical aspects on how our robotic ablation instrument is going to help their patients. I'm going to talk about different arrhythmias. I'm going to break down and show different studies, on the clinical aspects of our robot and how it's going to improve outcomes for their patients. I can't go in there and have that same conversation with the CFO. If I do, it's idiotic. It's going to be like, they're not going to be listening to me. That's not their wheelhouse. Now I have to talk in dollars and cents with them. So I better have an ROI set up. And most companies or most individuals that are in this space, they probably have a company that has some sort of return on investment model that shows once they get this product, this is how much it should bring in, the revenue that it should bring in to the hospital. And if you don't have this, your company doesn't have this, this is a question you should be asking whenever you're getting to a big capital purchase. How is a hospital going to make money with this? Because yes, it's about patient outcomes is number one. But if they're losing money, they're not going to buy anything. So you have to show the return on investment. That is key. But having those different conversations and walking in there, knowing who you're speaking to, because you have to know that, guys. You can't go into a meeting and just assume you're going to talk the same way in front of everyone. You're going to lose people. They're going to say, this doesn't mean anything to me. I don't care about, this different arrhythmia. I care about how it's going to bring more dollars into our hospital. So make sure you have those ROI models set up for those individuals throughout the process. So this is just a quick snapshot, guys, going over a couple of minutes of what you're going to face. Again, physicians, nursing, clinical support, champions, procurement, materials management, VPs of departments, CFO, CEO, and there still could be many other players that need to be involved for you to get this done. Okay. Just taking a second to talking too much. Need water. Okay. So one of the first things, now that we have a little background of what it looks like in a quick couple minutes to go over the timeline, is that's one of the first conversations that you're having with your champion or the individuals involved in the value analysis committee. What is their timeline? How often do they meet, number one, and what kind of timeline, would it take typically to get this kind of approval? You need to know that, because you're going to be in the middle of getting pushed by your company that wants this today. We need to get this done now. They're going to say they understand, but trust me, their timeline is going to be faster and more impatient than what the hospital wants to do. So you have to balance. It's a balancing act, because you can't just go, my company needs this now, or they need this within the next 3 months because we have to hit our quarterly number, or we have to hit it within 6 months to hit our year-end goal. So I have to get this in, Dr. Jones. Dr. Jones is going to go, good for you, Joe. Best of luck. Get the hell out of here. I don't work for you, and my company doesn't work for you. My hospital doesn't work for your company. So you have to have a balancing act where you're constantly moving the ball forward, but also understanding that there is a process, that it does take time. And that's the most frustrating part of capital sales, is that it takes so much time that it's not that they're not interested. It's just that all these different departments, when you're getting everything together and getting a big new product approved, it takes time to get all the approvals. So don't rush it too much where you piss people off, or make it too much about you and your company where you're not showing the needs of the hospital, what really matters to them. So get that timeline, because you're going to have to create a sales funnel where it's going to move by in a stage like type of pace. So you're not going to go in and get a deal the first day. It's going to be different stages of where you're at. And that's what you're going to have to share with your company. And this is very important, because that's going to show the progress. Your company probably will have the stages set up, and it might be anywhere from 5, could be up to 20 stages, no matter however they break it down. But that's where you're going to have to show your progress. So whatever CRM service you're using, whatever software you're using, this is very important. This is not like taking notes with Dr. Jones on your office-based calls and you talk about the study you presented last time, or his feedback about the last case he had with you, or the drug, how he had an adverse reaction that he wanted to share. This is the note-taking here is very important, because if you're not showing a progression down the stages, then that means you're not selling. You could still not get a purchase order, but if the company sees you progressing through the sales cycle and moving further along in these different stages, then that's key. Okay, so first stage might be identifying a champion. Okay, second stage might be having an actual meeting or presentation with a C-suite member, a CFO, a CEO, a CNO, a chief nursing officer. Some of these individuals will have to be involved in such a big purchase that they might be the second stage. Another stage might be taking one of these individuals on a site visit where the product is being used. That's important, because most of them are not going to spend $1 million unless they've seen the product in use and see the value that it can really bring. So that could be another stage. Another stage might be, approval for, in our instance, it was actually having either a construction project that was going on within one of the cath labs, because we needed that so we can actually put our product in during the construction. Because if a construction was already done, the hospital was not redoing that room a year later. It's like similar to redoing the exterior or renovating your house. And then all of a sudden another builder comes a year later and says, hey, Joe, I got this really cool plan to renovate your house. You're going to go, dude, I just did this last year. I'm not doing that again. So it's the same with the hospital with some of these big projects, where if you miss the timing of it, then it's not a real lead. It's not an actual project that can be done. So you need to know the if there's another stage would be identifying, say, a construction project. And I'm just making specific examples up for my situation that I was in when I sold robotics. So whole point being, you need to keep moving through all these stages to a point where you actually got approval and got a purchase order signed. So that's how you move through the process. So having each one of these stages mapped out is important for any of you going into a capital sales role and you really want to impress them during the interview. Have stages presented on what you think would be a good fit. Have this as part of your business plan. This is key. This is where, I say it all the time, 30, 60, 90s are garbage. But if you put the work in and make it specific for that opportunity that you're going for, and talk about the doctors in the area, talk about the hospitals, come up with a game plan, know the competition, and make it into an actual strategy, that's great. Do the same thing with your capital role. Have an understanding of a timeline that it's going to take, the stages involved that you need to be successful, the players within the hospital that are going to get you there. You go in with that and present that to a hiring manager, they're going to be blown away, guys. They're going to be absolutely blown away. And now if you have relationships and have worked with some of these individuals in the past, now you just moved up to the top of the candidate chart. I mean, you're going to stand out. So show the stages and show what it takes. Because one of the things that you have to master in capital sales, and that's getting used to celebrating small wins. I wasn't used to this at first. I was frustrated my first few months because I felt like I wasn't accomplishing anything. I wasn't making any sales. Nothing was happening. But then when I started celebrating the small wins, for instance, I had a physician at NYU that I tried it was probably 9 months to get him on a site visit. And the day that I got the approval and got him booked on his flight to go out to Texas to sit with another key opinion leader out there and watch a case, I went out and celebrated with my wife, went out to a nice dinner. I felt like I sold something. But you have to do this because that's going to keep you motivated. If you go to work every day in capital sales and say, this sucks, I didn't come home with another deal today, you're not going to last. You have to celebrate those small wins. So it could be even booking an appointment with a key opinion leader or with someone that's going to help you, with a champion, where you just had a lunch with them and talked about your product. Then that you could celebrate, because this long sales cycle isn't about selling every day. It's not, because selling, you need some sort of purchase to happen. For me, it's more about educating and continuing to educate, continuing to show value. You're going in there not expecting to make a sale today, but you got to keep your supporters within the hospital motivated to continue to push for your product, or they won't do it, guys. Again, you're not the most important thing on their calendar each day, but for you, you have to continue month after month, keep them motivated, keep them engaged, keep showing new data, keep trying to get them more information that can help them throughout this process. Even though they could say, Joe, we're in a holding pattern now for the next 3 months. Let's just take a break. You understand that. But if you literally just take 3 months off and not see anyone, A, you'll probably get fired because your company's not going to want you to sit around for 3 months. But B, they're going to forget about you. So you have to be continuing to educate and not continuing to sell. So we're going to take a break right there and see if we have any questions. James, any questions from the crowd?
Yeah, we have a couple. What's the best way to manage a 9 to 18 month sales cycle without going insane or burning out? I feel like you kind of answered that one, but
that gets back to the stages. You have to create the small wins. You got to break down it. The old saying, how do you eat an elephant? An elephant, one piece by piece, or one piece at a time. You got to do the same thing with this, selling these, because 18 months is a long time. And if you just look at, I didn't sell something again today, you will quit. You won't want to move forward. So break it down into those stages and give yourself timelines where you have to have this done, because that's another important point that I didn't mention. Excuse me. Having an impending date is a good thing. So if they're going to do, for instance, when they were doing a new construction in the cath lab, when I was at Stereotaxis, and say it was a year out, that we would salivate that, as when you're trying to sell capital. That means now you actually have a date. So now you can pressure individuals throughout the hospital team to say, like, well, we can't wait around forever. Or Dr. Jones, you have to get to that next VAC meeting, because if you don't get there, they're not meeting for another 3 months. We're never going to be able to do this and get the build out done in time and get all the other steps that we need. So you need that timeline, because that lights a fire into moving some of this the administration team and also some of your clinical team to get this product approved. So using an impending date is key. You want those dates, because now it gives you a hard timeline to get this done. But to answer that question again, simply set up stages where you can have small wins, and that'll help you, reduce the burnout in the process.
Okay, we got, how do I create internal champions who will sell the deal inside the hospital when I'm not in the room?
Yeah, and that's continuous and being persistent and continuously educating. The first time you're going to go in there, Dr. Jones might be blown away by this product. Typically, the way it works, they've seen this at a conference, they've seen it at another hospital, or they heard about it through another colleague or read about it, and they're interested. You come in there, present, show them how it works. They get really excited and engaged, but you have to continuously be educating them. A lot of these products, they need to see it in person. They need another individual. They need another physician, because one thing that I can guarantee you, you can think you're really good at selling this product. A good physician is always going to sell it better, because they're actually using this on patients. They're going to bring up things that you probably never even thought of. And they're going to be able to relate to the other physician and say, you know what, I tried this, with an XYZ patient that was going through all these different issues, and I saw a lot of success. Or I would never think that would work on these types of patients, but I tried it a few times and I've had a lot of success. You're going to see the doctors. I mean, they straight up, guys, no matter how good you are in sales, they're going to respect their colleagues, because they're in the trenches every day. They put in the years of schooling together, and they're dealing with the heartaches of being a physician day in and day out. So when they say something, it's always going to be more impactful. So getting those individuals to speak with other physicians that have used this is key.
How do you balance urgency and patience when a deal stalls halfway through?
Well, I mean, that's just part of it. You just can't get too frustrated. I mean, there's going to be delays. So it's always good to be transparent. Good. All right, let me back up. What happens a lot of these times, here's a real life experience that I've had multiple times. And like I said, this is why I call my YouTube channel Unfiltered, because I don't want any bullshit. I want to be very real with you guys when I'm doing any of these podcasts or providing any information. What happens is reps start to lie. And I know capital reps out there, but like, oh, maybe you, Joe, but I never lied. Yeah. Okay. So you don't lie. I'm the only liar out there, but I want to make my company happy. So I'll start telling them that when they get on me, and this I learned the hard way when I first started, that things were progressing faster or as fast as the company wanted it to be. I would tell them, oh, yes. Oh, we already got approval from Dr. Jones. I already got him scheduled for a site visit. And you try to make them happy by lying. And it's not the right way to go about it, guys. You want to be transparent. You don't want to make them happy. If the CEO comes up to you today, say, Joe, we're going to sell 5 of these next month, and you want to be the gung-ho salesman, like you can do anything. Yeah, Bob, I'm going to get 5 next month. That's the wrong answer. Say, absolutely not, Bob. I'm trying my best. Realistic timeline is we probably won't get those in for another year. That's what you want to do. So you want to have these conversations with your direct manager where you're very upfront, very transparent. You want to over communicate when it comes to capital sales. Don't forget, they don't see sales coming in every day. So they expect progress to be making for you to be making. So when you're not making progress, it's hard not to lie. You want to lie because you go, shit, if I tell them the truth, I'm going to get fired. And I'd rather see you tell the truth. And if they want to fire you and find someone else, then good luck to them, because this is a very difficult space. You don't just snap your fingers and things get done, guys. You have to be upfront and transparent with them from day one and continue that if you want to be successful. And you also don't want to mislead them, because some of these managers, VPs out there, CEO, they're going to take your word as gospel and then could be presented that at the next board meeting. And now everyone is being misled because you're being, ultra confident. You are overly confident, excuse me. So you don't want to do that. Just be transparent. As much as it sucks, you got to give them bad news, because it's only going to bite you in the ass later on, because they're going to expect all these results and it's going to be built on bullshit and you're not going to get anywhere.
What red flag should I look for that a faculty won't be able to buy within the next 12 months?
Well, I mean, a lot of times they're going to be open with you. Yeah, you're always going to get the objection, we don't have the money. We don't have the budget. Okay? You're going to get that a lot. But the more that you have these relationships, you have to figure out what their budget is. And really, if there is no budget, that's not a target, guys. Don't think because it's a big name hospital, you have to sell it to them. If they don't have the money, it's, same thing with my program. Some people can't afford my program. That's okay. I wish them the best of luck. I'm not going to keep reaching out to someone or expecting them to change every other week and see if someone has the money to do a program. It's not going to be for everyone. So same with the hospitals. If they don't have the money, they are not a target. So you just move on to another hospital. It's that simple. That's why you need a lot in your funnel, because you're going to start with maybe 30 accounts that are targets, 30 hospitals and hospital systems. And that's when you truly see the funnel come down like this. And before stuff comes out where you're actually getting purchase orders, it could be 1 or 2 purchase orders. So it's a very low success rate from where you start. So if you only start with 3 accounts that are interested, trust me, nothing is going to come out of that funnel. You need a bunch to start with, because a lot is going to go by the wayside and you're not going to continue to have as a target, because a lot of these places will not have the budgets for some of these products. It's not the right fit. So to know that quickly and then move on and not be upset because the big name hospital didn't have the money, just go somewhere else. Don't keep going down a dead end. That's the worst thing you can do. And if you don't listen and watch for those signs, when they straight up keep saying, we don't have the money, or we don't have a project, or you don't have a champion. That's more important too. You could have a hospital that does have the money, but if you didn't have a champion in place who's going to push for this, you think they're going to buy it just because they like Joe Licata? No, you need a physician as a champion. So if you don't have that, they don't have the budget, or if it's a product that needs a certain room or space, they don't have these things. Guys, move on. So the red flags are typically dependent on the product, but these are just some universals. The 2 universals are budget and champion. If you don't have those 2, move on.
Okay. Are there any tactics or tools that elite reps use to align with a hospital's annual budgeting process?
Yeah, the elite reps know what the process is. So they're having those conversations. They're going in there and being a sponge and fact finding and learning the process and knowing what because the process is different at every hospital. So knowing that process is going to make you more successful. That's more important than really knowing how to sell your product well. Because if you don't align with the process, like I was saying earlier, you're going in there and telling Dr. Jones everything about your product, and he doesn't have a value analysis committee meeting for 3 months, you wasted your time. So real high performers know who's on the committee, know when the meetings are happening, know what the budget is, know who the key players are, know who else they have to get involved to get this purchase done within administration, within C-suite level, clinically. They know all the key players, because there's a lot of doctors out there and a lot of individuals that you'll notice when they're very open to you speaking with them and they give you a lot of time. A lot of time, those are the individuals that do not really have much say in this process. The real players are the ones that are tough to see. The real players that have a real say, I don't want to say the real players, but the individuals that have a real say in the process, they're typically the ones that aren't going to be jumping in front of you every 2 seconds to tell me more about this, because they're getting hit up by everyone. And everyone knows that it's them that's going to make a decision to push this forward. So they're typically be the harder ones to see. So I lost my train of thought for a second there, but I hope that answers the question.
Yeah, we have. Let me find it. I just lost it myself. Hold on.
It's okay.
How long is the average sales cycle in capital equipment in hospitals versus outpatient centers?
How long is it depends on the product. So, I mean, again, it's some capital products literally could be sold within a month, but when you get above the department max that they can improve. So for instance, in a lot of cardiology departments in New York used to be 150,000 or 100,000 in some of them, where the chief could approve anything 100,000 or less. So once you get above that, now they need multiple departments, because again, they're going to be pulling from another department to help pay for this product. That's going to increase the timeline. So the quick answer, it could be anywhere from a month to 3 or 4 years. And I'd say the average for the average capital equipment product, which again, it's a hard answer, I'd say about a year to 18 months.
Okay. Let's see what. Where is it? Here we go. How many deals should be in the pipeline at each stage?
How many deals? The more, the better. The more, the better. The key is to be realistic what a potential deal is. So if your funnel's going to dwindle from stage to stage. We'll make it simple. If there's 5 stages and you have 30 accounts in stage 1, by time you get to stage 5, you hope you have 1 or 2. So the more that you can have in that funnel, the better, because it's going to increase your chances of each stage of having accounts in that stage. But if you're lying to yourself because you want to make the company happy and showing you're doing all this, making all this progress with things that aren't real, it's a bad path to go down, guys. You don't want that. So if you only have a couple that are real, I'd rather see that, because you're going to see more come out the end. You're going to see more real deals come through because you were upfront with yourself of what is a real potential prospect. So knowing that at the beginning is going to increase your success. Lying to yourself is only going to hurt you.
I'm sure this is product specific, but is there any data that is considered must-have before a hospital will move forward on an expensive purchase?
It's typically the data that they want. They want to see proof from other hospitals, and this is a tricky game too, because when you deal in this space, especially with teaching centers and centers of excellence, those are basically centers where people fly around the country to come see certain cases done because they're the best in cardiology, in electrophysiology or ortho, whatever it is, so you want to make sure that sometimes hospitals don't respect other hospitals. So they're not going to respect the data or the physicians from another hospital. I've seen this firsthand. When I was trying to do site visits and get physicians from some of the key centers in New York, they wouldn't just come to any hospital in New Jersey. They just wouldn't. There are a lot of doctors that they didn't want to go to those programs. They wanted to fly across the country, because those specific physicians, they had good relationships and they really respected their program. So it's always going to be another proof of concept, not in every case, because there's a lot of early adopters that they want to be the first to have it. But a lot of times hospitals want to see proof of concept. They want to see the data, not suggestive or small studies. They like to see larger sample sizes, but they like to see that it's actually being used elsewhere. The flip side of that, which can get hospitals motivated too, when they are the first to get, say, a robotic system in New Jersey, because that's a marketing move that now they can use, where they are the only ones. Like when the Intuitive robot first came out, when the Da Vinci robot came out from Intuitive, a lot of hospitals jumped on that because it was, it's an amazing device. But for them to say, we have this new robot that provides all the safety features and accuracy and everything else that they use to sell that product. And they were the center of excellence. So you had to go they would attract patients if it wasn't, from a 30 or 50 mile radius. Now they're attracting from a 300 mile radius because people want to come and get a procedure done with this new device. That's a huge motivator too. So it's either the clinical data on one end where they see the proof of concept, or it could be, we want to be the first as a marketing tool to drive revenue and increase patients coming in.
Okay. We have a YouTube comment. What about algorithms sales cycle? Could you walk through that? How do you do the initial outreach?
What about algorithm sales cycle? I don't even know what that means, to be honest with you, but could you walk through that? And
how do you do the initial outreach is the last part.
The initial outreach is finding out, doing your research and finding out who the players are in that hospital. You're going to start with a product that is in initial, it's going to be in for a certain therapeutic area. So if it's cardiology, you're going to the cardiology departments first within the hospital. And then it's fact finding, guys. There is no, like, when you first walk in, you go see Dr. Jones. And then from Dr. Jones, you're going to see Dr. Smith. And then you're going to see the nurse practitioner, Susan. And then you're going to see the office manager or the vice president of the department. No, you go in there first and set up an in-service. If you have $1 million cardiology product, go to the cardiology department, set up an in-service, and find out the process. You have this $1 million product. What does that look like? Who's the chief? The chief is going to be involved in this. So whoever the chief of cardiology is, you want to speak to him or her. And then they will help guide you in the process. You're not going to get everything in one conversation. It's going to be multiple meetings. It's going to be constant fact finding. But set up that initial outreach with the department and the department heads first, because they're going to give you the information. When you do a lunch, in the hospital, it's going to cost you a pretty penny, because some of those departments can feed up to 60, 70 people. You're going to have to spend money on that, but that's part of it. But get as much information from that lunch as possible. I mean, I've had lunches that were 4 hours. I won't leave until they kick me out, because I'm utilizing, my company just spent a lot of money on that. I'm going to fact find and get as much information that day that I could possibly get, because that's going to help set you up for success moving forward. But that's my quick answer. I apologize about the algorithm and all that. I mean, there's no algorithm that I know of for the sales cycle. It's just going out there, starting with the department that your product is going to be useful for, and then continuing to expand and build relationships.
Okay. Aman followed up and said, algorithms-based medical devices.
Yeah, it still doesn't make sense to me. I apologize, Aman.
Okay. What strategies work for reopening cold accounts or resurrecting stalled deals?
Well, you got to find out. I mean, the first thing I would do, I'd find out who stalled that deal, who closed it. I mean, there's another rep or manager or someone that was involved in that. Find out what the real story is. Because when you take over a capital sales role and it's an established product, guys, this is another, like teaching moment that through experience, find out if you could speak to the previous rep that was in that position. That's key. Now you got to take it with a grain of salt to find out why that person's not in that role anymore, because they could be pissed off, disgruntled, they hate the company because they fired them, and all those things could come into play. But you want the person that was involved hands-on in that role, because they're going to be able to tell you why it was stalled. So companies sometimes will just have you go out there and be like, just go run through walls. They did a bad job there. You get out there and do it. They screwed up, that previous person. It's always the other person's fault. And sometimes they have you go out there to dead end streets, because they really believe that there's something there. Meanwhile, when you speak to the other rep, like, Joe, there's the project's done. For instance, when we had rooms that there was no construction projects going on for the next 3 years, there's no project that could possibly happen for us. So that would be a closed account. So I would first and foremost, if I can get a conversation with whoever covered those accounts last, that is huge. So just understand they might be disgruntled, but more often than not, a lot of these guys are good guys out there. They moved on. They've started a new job. You could get some really good information and save time, but don't think that you're going to be Superman trying to revive a lot of stalled accounts. You have to know the reasons why. If it's a dead deal that's not happening, or if someone may have just left, because sometimes a champion could leave the hospital or retire. Now you're starting from square one again. You need to know the facts. So the best thing to do is find out from that previous rep what happened, or speak to someone at the company to really get a good understanding, because you don't want to just run down dead end streets. You need to know what's really going on before you close it yourself.
Okay. What are the most common contract terms or clauses that slow down capital deals?
I mean, that's on the legal end. A lot of times, just sometimes the lawyers involved on the legal team of the hospital, deals are always going to get slowed down once legal's involved. But a lot of times sometimes a service agreement that could slow things down. I've had that cost me a couple deals where I worked on one deal for almost 3 years, literally almost 3 years. And I did a presentation. I'm obviously not going to mention names of the hospital, but I did a big presentation for the cardiology department, and we were this close to getting everything approved. They had a room, they had the funding, I had the champion, I had the support, I had the support from the C-suite. Everything was great. And one individual jumped up during my meeting and said in front of everyone, yeah, why don't you wait till he tells you how much the service agreements are? And this really wasn't important to the people in the room, but it just started a negative flow into the conversation. I mean, I was sick to my stomach because it was a price that was too high for them. And it just was a negative spiral within the room that people now that didn't need to know that, because that's more of the, more for the admin and getting budget, to get that annual budget that clinically wasn't really relevant, but it created a negative spiral that essentially cost me the deal. So it's one comment, literally one comment destroyed 3 years of work. Yeah, I was sick for a while after that. So that time it was a service agreement. But it could be something that you never know. It's almost like selling a house, where if you're a realtor, you don't want to count your chickens until they hatch, because until that deal is done, anything can happen that can derail it. So just don't celebrate too soon. Don't take the pedal off the gas. Keep going until you get that purchase order. and you're set up for whatever construction, or, once you get that PO, that should be the time to celebrate. But don't celebrate any sooner, because small factors like that can derail it.
Okay, we got how do reps handle situations where the decision maker wants the equipment but finance doesn't?
I mean, that's just part of it. So you're going to get a lot of clinicians that want your product. If you have a good product, you're going to get the buy-in from clinicians. Again, it's another tool that they can use. Why would they say no? It's the same as kids wanting different toys in their house. Most kids are going to say yes to every toy that someone brings them, but their parents are essentially the finance department. And they're going to say, okay, yeah, I think it's cool too. We don't have the money for that. So I can't buy you a new, motorcycle, dirt bike. We don't have the money. So you have to understand that, but you have to make the finance team see the value. So a lot of people they're always going to say we don't have the money, but you have to be able to find out, do they not have the money, or they're not sold on what you're selling them? And that typically is getting back to that ROI conversation. Because again, different hat. They're not going to care so much about talking about specific arrhythmias or ailments. They want to see dollars and cents. So you have to put that different hat on and talk, financially on why that makes sense to convince them. So go in with those different hats, have different conversations, because you're going to get brought up. That's going to come up every deal. It's never smooth where everyone loves this product and they want it purchased. They get hit up with hundreds of products every month that they constantly have to say no to because they don't have the budget. So make them realize and see the value financially on why they should approve it.
And the last question I got, Joe, is what should reps do in the first 30 to 90 days after a capital deal closes?
What should reps do after it closes?
Yeah.
Go celebrate. I mean, obviously I'm kidding, but what you want to do, you definitely want to celebrate. That's not a joke, but you want to partner with whoever your clinical team is. That's going to drive adoption, drive utilization, because most capital reps, they make their deal and that's it. But you can't have that attitude as a capital rep, because that utilization and that success is now going to snowball into more success in the future, because you're going to have to sell it to future accounts. So if an account, the worst case scenario is they buy it and they don't use your product. Now, you made your money at your commission on that one deal, but how likely are you to sell more if they're not even using it? Because trust me, doctors will talk. They'll say, yeah, I know NYU has it. They don't even use it. I saw it sitting there collecting dust. And we actually had equipment around the country where certain hospitals didn't use it, and then they got upgraded to better platforms and then started using it, like crazy. But sometimes with an old platform, that or whatever the product is, they could stop using it. And as a good capital rep, you want to work with your clinical team to drive utilization and adoption, and that'll help you become more successful.
Yeah, that's all I got for you today, Joe.
Awesome. Well, guys, James, first off, thank you again for fielding all those. As always.
No
Appreciate it, man. And thank you all again for joining. Thank you for providing all the questions. I know this one was a little bit more of an advanced topic, and that's what we're going to continue to do on Mondays. Remember to join us every Monday for more advanced topics at 3 p.m. Eastern, and every Wednesday for more broader topics that anyone from entry level up to seasoned professionals can find value in. To move forward, for all my lobby members, please, if you're looking to book any one-on-one coaching with me, please send in your promo code. The promo code is Licata, Licata. So that'll enable you to get more discounts. And also I'm excited to announce that we are launching the RepPath Academy. So for any of you individuals that are looking for coaching to break into the industry or also to advance in your career, I'm very excited about this, guys. feel free to reach out and message me about that. And if that's it, I hope to see you guys on Wednesday at 3 p.m. for more of our latest podcast. And I hope to see you guys soon. Take care.